It's a community of people, and it's always been people-oriented.
It's a nurturing place for our students of all ages to come and learn.
It's a great thrill, really, to come here and see all this activity.
It's everything that we envisioned.
Nobody ever thought it would grow like it's grown, but it's a major institution now.
It's difficult to believe when you look at Howard County today that it was once farmland and a few scattered subdivisions. Back in the 50s, the population of the county was only a little more than 23,000, and none of the local towns had more than 1,000 residents. With no community college of their own, most Howard County students attended Catonsville Community College.
Very few people wanted to go to college. If they did, they went to the University of Maryland or Hood College or one of the Johns Hopkins. And but finally, Catonsville Community College opened up over in Baltimore County, and they agreed to take a small number of our students.
Once the student population began to increase, they had to come up with a new plan.
I guess they were getting more applicants than they could handle, so they said, you can't send any more over here. And that's when we really got to thinking about starting a community college of our own.
Members of the Board of Education supported the idea of starting a community college in the county.
We think, well, we ought to have this for Howard County. Our students should be able to, because they were wanting to come to or go to Catonsville Community College. And so why shouldn't we provide that interest out here, closer to home? And that's what we did.
A great deal of construction was already taking place in the county as the new city of Columbia was well underway. The approval process for the community college happened quite rapidly. The Board of Education was authorized by the county commissioners to establish Howard Community College, and 3 days later, with the state's approval, HCC was in line to become the 14th community college in Maryland. Senator Clark was instrumental in securing the funding for the construction of the first building. The Board of Education then began its search for land. In planning for Columbia, James Rouse had set aside 2 parcels of land for consideration by the board.
As I recall, when the information in the news that the Board of Education was interested in establishing a community college, there was some discussion about sites, and the Rouse Company came immediately forward with a couple of suggestions of sites in the Columbia area.
The board negotiated with Howard Research and Development and eventually settled on 119 acres for approximately $300,000. They also secured enough funding from the state for the creation of the new building. By the summer of 1969, construction had begun. Next, the board would have to find someone to lead the college. Ironically, Dr. Alfred Smith, who would be chosen as the first president, found out about the position at a conference from the president of Catonsville Community College.
Columbia at the time was in its infancy, and as a matter of fact, there wasn't even any road outside of this campus. We had a dairy farm next door where the cows were still coming over on the college's property. I knew about Columbia. I knew what the initial concepts were, and I was very impressed with them, and thought it'd be a wonderful idea to come here and start a new community college based on this new planned city of Columbia.
Dr. Smith began to implement his vision for the college, hiring faculty and staff that could bring it to fruition.
What Al did initially, Al Smith, was to hire a group of administrators who understood objective-based learning. And they put in place a curriculum that was based around learning objectives. And then they built in, and this was really the stroke of genius, they built in an evaluation system for the faculty which was based on putting those objectives in place.
he was a visionary. He saw education as something that had to be totally student-oriented. That is, the faculty were not here to teach and to profess knowledge. They rather were here to cause student learning to occur.
We were trying to develop a program whereby students would know what the faculty wanted them to learn. It's as simple as that. And we developed a systematic program based upon terminal performance specifications so that students would say, oh, I need to know this, and they could then be tested on whether they did know that. And that's what it was all about.
I know the faculty who are here from those times tell stories about the ideas that they brought forth at the time and the things that they tried, the ideas that were popular at that time. So they were always trying things from the very beginning, and I think that's why we have the culture that we have. Let's try the newest and best things, and they still feel that way.
Recruiting faculty proved to be difficult at a time when community colleges were opening at a rate of 1 every week. Faculty members were recruited from four-year universities, and offering them higher salaries was one way to get them here.
I was making $10.8 at Coppin, and they offered me $12.5. So I said, well, I'm going to get a $1,700 raise. So I took the job.
The first building on campus was scheduled to open in September of 1970.
We started during the summer, so it was probably July or early August when we came aboard, and it was the teacher building in downtown Columbia. That's where we'd meet and have our sessions, do planning and development and so forth. We were very small, you know, it was just less than 10 full-time faculty. But we started looking at what kind of college we wanted to be.
We were on the payroll in August, or the end of August, I guess, and the building still was not ready for occupancy. There were still things that had to be done, I guess, inside. And so we wound up doing a lot of our preparation at home, coming in to see the dean or whoever else, and our orientation had to be held at the American Cities building. The Rouse Company let us use their conference room in one of their classrooms. We didn't open until Monday, October 12th. So the opening was delayed by, easily a month.
On Sunday, the faculty were here along with the administrators swabbing down the classroom floors because we're going to open the next day, and construction had just barely completed.
It was just a fun and a very, very exciting weekend. And then, of course, the first day of classes was just super exciting.
In 1971, the Howard Community College Board of Trustees was established, creating a new board entirely separate from the Howard County Board of Education. 7 people were appointed to the new board by Governor Mandel. The college was soon fully accredited and formally approved to confer degrees. In June of 1972, Howard Community College held its first commencement ceremony, graduating 36 students.
First graduation, if I can remember it, I believe it was just outside the building, the one building that we had, and I just remember the chairs all being set up on the cement. It was a small graduation, and we had a lot of local people, and it was just exciting, though, to see your first graduates.
One of the many initiatives taken by Dr. Smith was to recruit Bernadine Hallinan to create a 2-year RN program.
We started writing the grant for a startup program because that was one of the reasons that many colleges wouldn't start nursing programs, was because they were so expensive. And we were fortunate to get that funded so that all of the nursing education program for the first, I think, 2 years, probably 3 years, was totally funded. Faculty salaries, everything, all the materials, which allowed us to hire faculty ahead of time and to do some of the educational things that we thought were essential.
From 71 to 72 was when the program was developed.
and the features and the context and a lot goes into starting a nursing program. And then in 1972, in the fall, we admitted the first class.
We always have criteria in place that we believe are essential for the student to be successful. That's the bottom line.
I mean, we had a waiting list. From the beginning, we had a waiting list. Students wanted to enter before we even had the program ready to go.
Whoever was first in line got the first seat, whoever was second in line got the second seat. It got to the point where they would sleep in the parking lot the night before we were going to open up seating for the nursing class. And then when the line got long, all the way down to the end of the hall, somebody would hit the fire alarm after all that. And then there'd be fights that would break out. So we figured out that that was not the best method for seating the nursing class.
Through persistence and hard work, Bernadine Hallinan was also able to secure a grant to construct the nursing building, which was dedicated in 1976.
She wrote a grant that was twice, maybe 3 times turned down, but we pursued it. And we finally got that building, much to the chagrin of maybe some of the state officials. We're fortunate to have the good support of local politicians that helped us enormously, and statewide and federal politicians who helped immensely. And then, so we got that building, and the rest came along with the tremendous growth in enrollments.
As community college networks were developed throughout the country, each institution was required to meet the same criteria: to create comprehensive programs with an emphasis on civic responsibility and to serve their communities in which they resided. Howard Community College met that mandate in a multitude of ways.
Con Ed was part of the original legislation for community colleges, a 3-pronged effort: transfer, terminal degrees they were called, immediate workforce entry, and community education or continuing education. Those were the 3 pieces from the beginning, because the idea was that the community college would be a different entity than a 4-year university.
Continuing education's mission was to meet the needs of community members who were not seeking degrees.
You have a very well-educated community, so they aren't really, or they don't need traditional credit classes, particularly to the beginning ones. But they're looking for personal enrichment. So they're going to take a class in Russian, or they're going to take a class in Islamic culture, or they're looking for a recreational class in yoga. So I think part of that, it would appeal to those people who already had credentials and degrees but wanted to keep on learning. It's the lifelong learning concept.
As more and more businesses began to call Howard County home, the Continuing Education Department worked to serve them.
The business outreach was challenging. This was the beginning of trying to convince companies that it was an investment in their own profit margin later on to have well-educated employees who knew how to do what they needed to do, and were also gearing up for the next thing. So that wasn't always obvious to people at the beginning, and we had to do a lot of convincing. And then also why they should come to us. What gave us credibility was always another part of the sell.
In this rapidly changing world, opportunity for lifelong learning is a valuable commodity, and Howard Community College serves its community well. As the student population continued to grow, the Board of Trustees began to explore ways to create scholarship opportunities for students.
Actually, credit for that goes to one of the college's early trustees, Salonia Walden, who really came back from a national trustee meeting with information about how other schools, community colleges, were launching fundraising efforts. And out of that came the creation of the Howard Community College Educational Foundation.
When I went to those meetings at the conventions, I would collect data from other places where they had foundations and things, and that's what it really made me want to help Howard Community College.
The Educational Foundation was tasked to help raise funds for scholarships, faculty development, and cultural programs. In the process of creating fundraising events, she also planted the seed for arts and media development.
I said we need the arts. We didn't have the arts at that time. All we had was like English, math. So it's just that is the traditional.
Over the years, Howard Community College has seen a renaissance of cultural development, offering a multitude of award-winning programs to students and the community. One of the Educational Foundation's early fundraising events was called the Celebrity Theater and brought notable actors such as Vincent Price and Carol Channing to campus. These events raised significant funds for scholarships. After Dr. Smith retired in 1981 and Dr. Dwight Burrell became HCC's second president, the scholarship endowment achieved great heights with the launch of the Columbia Classic Grand Prix in 1988.
An individual from the community, in this case Pat Kennedy, came to the college and said, you know, I've got this event, and I drove by the college, and that front yard is exactly the place to put it. And so he began to describe to me Grand Prix, and I said, but I don't think the community would like cars driving fast around. He said, no, it's not cars, it's horses. Oh, okay. And so he explained to me what a Grand Prix was, and we put a group of people together to start doing the planning. And it really has grown into one of the great events in the county.
The Columbia Classic Grand Prix has raised over $1.8 million as it gallops into its 18th year. Under the leadership of Dr. Burrell, HCC became known for its advancements in technology.
It was a no-brainer, really. If you were sitting around looking at anything that was going on in the late 80s and early 90s, you knew that the computer was having an immense impact and was going to have an immense impact. And I just couldn't see any way that the college could sit by and not be a part of that process, if possible, be a leader in that process, because it was just happening so quickly.
We were always on the cutting edge of the technology, is what I remember with Dr. Burrell. And, you know, things were changing rapidly, but we had access to it and opportunities to implement it when technology was new.
Dr. Burrell put a PC on the desk of every faculty member and college administrator.
For the most part, technology was embraced by the faculty and administration in the institution. And it really changed the way that we did business in the institution. The other thing the board directed me to when I got here was to try to build bridges to the business community. The board really wanted the business community involved in the institution more than it had been. And so I spent a lot of time and energy in the early years on chamber boards and other activities in the business community, trying to bring them in, and made a lot of progress in them.
In 1992, Dr. Burrell tasked Barbara Greenfeld and Jerry Casway with developing an honors program for students.
We wanted to create an opportunity for them to have a more social, collegiate experience. And at the same time, we recognized that there were a number of students in the county, very, very talented, very academically superior students that for whatever reason didn't want to go or couldn't go away to college. And so we tried to think of a way that we could design a program that would give them a collegiate experience, give them an excellent academic experience, and be able to stay close to home for the first couple of years.
This program was named in honor of James Rouse, who was a strong supporter of the college.
The Rev Scholars has been a really an area of great pride to me. Setting that up with Barbara Greenfeld from scratch to the point where after 13 years, we now doubled the class. We have 90 students.
Over the years, community colleges were viewed by many high school students and their parents as a continuation of high school and were often referred to as the 13th grade. Developing the Rev Scholars Program did a lot to change that perception.
It became very, very key and crucial, and we recognized early on, to changing the image of the college and the community, particularly among all those connected to the high schools, parents, students, and teachers, and especially guidance counselors. Before the inception of the Rev Scholars Program, we were getting 12 to 15% of the high school graduate population. And since the Rev Scholars Program, we're getting almost a quarter of the high school population.
Student success has always been a priority at Howard, and the Student Support Services Program plays a vital role in that mission. The program was originally funded in 1979 by a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. Initially, the program served students with disabilities, as well as low-income and first-generation college students. As the public school system's reputation for disability services grew, so did the number of students enrolling at Howard. Barbara Greenfeld served as the director of the program in its formative years.
Many families moved into the county who had children with special needs. And those children were not only protected for access by some of the laws for public schools, but they were getting ready to graduate, and they were also entitled to a fair amount of access in colleges and universities. And at that point, the Student Support Services program that the college had went into gear for that population.
Janice Marks became the director of the program in 1986. The increase in students seeking resources far outweighed the budget, and since not all students qualified under the grant guidelines to receive tutoring, Janice expanded tutoring support beyond the grant and sought out other funding sources.
When I first started here on campus, we had the Student Support Services budget, and we had a very small, couple $1,000s that the institution gave us to provide tutoring for students who wouldn't qualify for the program. And of course, those students, the numbers of those students kept growing, and they kept looking for assistance. And it got to be so bad that myself and Sherry Itzen, who was the tutor coordinator at the time, would actually make popcorn like 15 minutes before the classes would let out, so you could get the smell, the aroma out in the hallway, and sell popcorns and sell 30 bags at $1 a piece, and then walk over to the business office to deposit it so I could provide tutoring the next day.
The program grew into academic support, counseling, and career services. And under that umbrella came the development of the Learning Assistance Center. Today, over 1,000 students receive services from the center. One of the first in the state of Maryland to receive a master-level certification by the College Reading and Learning Association, the center has become a model for student success. Dr. Mary Ellen Duncan became president of Howard Community College in 1998.
It was an exciting process. I think the community, because of the way we did the search for our president, involved so much the community, the faculty, the alumni, students, as well as the board. We had 26 people on the search committee that were very, very involved in the process. We had meetings where the faculty and staff could come in and meet with the finalists. We had the same meeting for the community people to come in. And so we were embracing everyone in the community. So our choice ended up being everyone's choice.
She brings the leadership. She has a vision. She has a great work ethic. And her leadership here is not just outside in the community, but she has tremendous leadership inside this institution. And so I always say a great salesperson, someone who's 360 degrees. They're not just selling outside, they're selling inside. And I think that Mary Ellen has brought everybody along with her. She's made the whole team better.
Everybody thought, who's this kind of low-key, soft-spoken woman, and nobody seemed to get a handle on her. Next thing you know, you got 3 more buildings going up on the campus, But Duncan basically brought us into the 21st century, and we've gone from basically being a middle-sized community college to becoming one of the largest in the state now. And the amazing thing about President Duncan is the fact that she's getting money at a time when other community college presidents aren't getting money.
She's quiet, but she's persistent. I mean, if she wants something, she's going to get it. So, I think that's her legacy, that she can reach out and she can convince people of the value of this institution.
Since Dr. Duncan came on board, the college has grown tremendously.
For years, I was on committees talking about a child care center. Within a year and a half of Dr. Duncan being in, it was done and it was built, and it's now flourishing. And then within a year or so of that, we have the very impressive ILB building, and now the Performing Arts building, and the Student Services building, and the Quad, and we are a legitimate campus.
Howard Community College was woefully behind in its space needs. And that still, even today, with the projects under construction, even with 3 new buildings, we will still be the community college with the least pace per student.
One of the first things Dr. Duncan did as president was to form the Commission on the Future.
The first person who mentioned the idea of having a group from the community involved in planning was Fred Chamberlain. And I thought it was a great idea. I'd done it in other institutions.
We wanted to involve the community. Again, the community does not contribute or doesn't become involved in your institution unless they know who you are. And this was an excellent way for us to develop our mission, develop our goals by finding out what we were doing for the community, what were we not doing for the community. And as it turned out, this commission of 50 individuals from around the community came up with, I'd say, 50 reasons of things and explained it extremely well of what we needed to do to improve our delivery of services to the students around Howard County.
I think the college community was a little nervous at first, having people tell us what to do, but the community didn't tell us to do anything we wouldn't want to do anyway.
One thing that everyone agrees on is that HCC is special and unique.
I do feel there is something special about Howard Community College. There is a culture here that supports innovation and change. I think that's a very positive thing. The change comes from all parts of the organization. It doesn't come from the top. It may appear to, but it doesn't come from the top. The top just tries to keep up with all the changes that come from all parts of this organization. The ideas are free-flowing here, and that makes it an exciting place to be.
I believe what distinguishes us from other institutions is the fact that we are so proactive in terms of our thinking, our planning, and we've had both county government and trustee support for those programs. And as a result, we have been able to meet the needs of our students, meet the needs of our diverse community, and are able to react and respond much quicker and much more effectively than most other community colleges or four-year schools.
I kind of see this as a one-stop shop. The slogan, "You can get there from here," really applies.
I do think that all 3 presidents have really been far ahead of maybe much of the country in seeing where things needed to be going next, and sometimes that next was 10 years down the road. So they all 3 have been people who were not content to do today's business. Always wanted to see what will we be doing 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and then dreaming really big things for the future.